This is about the exhibits. Exhibits are one of our most popular categories, especially amongst the junior division, which is the middle school categories. Exhibits are intended to be similar to a museum exhibit. The idea is that the students should be using primary sources to tell their stories more than trying to write out, say, a paper. Exhibits have a maximum dimension of about 40 inches wide by 30 inches deep and 6 feet high. So you're going to see a lot of trifold boards, and that's okay. The size is usually about 2 trifold boards stacked on top of each other. That's usually what we anticipate. You might get projects that are different shapes, different sizes, but as long as they fit within that 40 by 30 by 6 foot amount of space, then they've met the requirements. You could also have circular projects where you might have to walk around them. That'll be 30 inches in diameter for that. We do try to cluster the projects together into their flights. Occasionally, there might be a project that needs to be next to the wall because of a power issue or because it is one that you want to walk around. So it might not necessarily be in the same order. So we'll try to point those out before the competition for you. Students are limited to 500 words maximum of their own student-composed words. The credits that they are required to put under the pictures do not count towards the words unless they are trying to explain something in the credits. But a brief factual credit doesn't count towards the 500 word limit. Primary sources do not count towards the word count as well. So if they have an excerpt from a speech, a diary entry, that is not their student composed words, that doesn't count towards the limit. What we're trying to avoid is students writing a paper and then slapping it onto a trifold board. They are also allowed media. That could be music, that could be video, up to 3 minutes of that media. The only thing you're allowed to do is press play. It's not like an interactive thing. That said, some projects will have some interactive elements. You might need to lift a flap on a piece of paper, for example, or spin a wheel, that kind of thing. That's all acceptable, that's fine. In the media, they're not allowed to use that to get around the word requirement. So they can't read a section of a paper. They shouldn't try to explain something on the board. It is intended to be, say, an interview or a primary source that they've found that they want to show off. All the quotes need to be credited. This is what it should look like. So, for example, this is a picture of Alice Paul. So a brief factual credit would be Alice Paul, 1918, Library of Congress. Every image and quote needs to have something like this. This section below that where it says Alice Paul was responsible for the campaign, that would count towards a 500 word count limit because it is not a brief factual credit, that is an explanation. All of the titles, subheadings, the thesis statement, most projects will have a thesis statement somewhere in the top center. That all counts towards the word count as well. Please note that the rules compliance section on the evaluation form will have little check boxes for you. The only 2 things that are disqualifying are obvious plagiarism and tampering with another student's project. You can have major infractions and minor infractions as well. So a major infraction might be that they are 500 words over the 500 word limit. That'd be a major infraction. A minor infraction might be a word or 2 over the limit, or it looks kind of close. So that will play into your evaluation, but it's not disqualifying. So consider that as well as you're meeting with the other judges. In the exhibit category, you're probably going to be one of several flights. So at the end, when you go back to the judges meeting, you will evaluate, you'll need to come to a consensus. We do not have a judges runoff anymore. So you'll have to be talking with the judges from the other flights to decide which projects you want to advance to the state competition. If you narrow it down to several categories, we will keep the exhibit hall open or closed rather, so people can't get in and take their projects until you've made your decision. That said, we are on a time crunch. So if you get back to the consensus room and you decide that you want to look at 3 or 4 projects, you need to get over there fairly quickly so that you can look at those and make your decision, because we do have that award ceremony coming down on us pretty quickly.